Well, that's just a taste of what diasporans do across the world. Talking about Africans as Nigerians woke up to the news of hurdler Tobiloba Amusan making magic in Eugene, Oregon, United States, as she created a world record and won the 100 meters hurdles gold at the World Athletics Championship. It's the first ever gold medal at the World Championships by any Nigerian. Amusan also ran and leaped to the African record some days ago in the competition. In the same competition, Nigerian long jumper Ese Brume leaped to a silver medal in the long jump event. Now, these are the latest of the show of greatness by Nigerians in the diaspora. Despite the difficulties faced at home, Nigerians have continued to keep the flag flying in the world, just as some other Africans, breaking speed records and inventing solutions to global challenges. In entertainment, sports, business, science, arts, politics, Nigerians and Africans have proven to stand out. A Nigerian woman, Kemi Badenoch, vied to become the British Prime Minister. Today is the celebration of these people who never stopped giving and never stopped making Nigeria proud. It's a National Diaspora Day special. Welcome to VSA. I'm Sulaiman. Well, it's a full one we have in today because we have more than enough Nigerians who've always spoken about the continent and love for the country. Millions of Nigerians are in the diaspora every year. Thousands of Nigerian youth emigrate to foreign countries in search of betterment. Now, they go there as skilled laborers, as students, as professionals, and in many other capacities. Now, Nigerians are some of the most competent people abroad. Now, they've shown quality and are holding great positions across the globe. Today, a Nigerian woman is the Director General of the World Trade Organization, and Nigerians hold many great corporate positions across the Americas to Europe and Asia, and even in Africa. They've stood out excellently in their endeavors. Nigerians remit more than averagely $20 billion to the government's coffers every year, and this proves important to the funding of the budget. They're the best in universities, hospitals, and some of the biggest companies in the biggest countries in the world. Joining me to unpack this and look at some of the key challenges and talk more about what Africans are doing, especially Nigerians are doing in the diaspora, is Ejike Okpa, who is a global affairs analyst. Good to see you. He joins me live from Texas in the US. And Collins Nweke is also a global affairs analyst. He joins me from Brussels in Belgium. Gentlemen, thanks for your time and good to see you. Well, you have the privilege of comparing home and abroad, having actively fought both of them. Let's start with you, Ejike. Yours was a voluntary movement, quite a history to read about you. What's the impression the motherland gives you when you first left the shores?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, and I said thank you also meeting the guest. My coming to America was by choice. I was already college educated in Nigeria. I did my NYSC. I was an estate surveyor in Port Harcourt, but at the time I decided that my dad actually it was a conversation with my dad who said, "Now, if you want to go to America, you're free to go," and I left. And I've had my own share of up and downs, but my country of choice is obviously better than my country of birth. I think my choice drives what I do. I didn't run away from Nigeria. I could have stayed if I wanted to, but it came to a point where the situation and the attitude stuff was creating a conflict for me, and then I decided to make the move. But I want to inject in this conversation that the first Nigerian came to America in 1918, as recorded, at the Ellis Island. 1918, that's 104 years ago. In fact, by this year, it would have been 100 years that Benjamin and Nnamdi Azikiwe left and came to America and came back and became the first Nigerian ever to have the title of president, even though it was a ceremonial role. So Nigerians have been coming to America consistently for the past 100 years. You know, so when people talk about diaspora and all that, I mean, there have been contributions Nigerians made, but it has not reflected on the overall collective existence of the country. Yes, they send money home. You know, remittances does not take the place of FDR. There are no corporations running Nigeria by Nigerian American or even Nigerians who went back home that has any significance. A lot of them have gone home, joined the government. You know, we have some who came back and became governors. What have they done? You know, I mean, that's got to be the measure. The measure is not the individual efforts and results. A whole bunch of people can do that. You know, the collateral value of a nation is measured by access to resources by the top and the bottom. And that has to be seen in the hospital system, in the roads, in the water system, in you know, those infrastructure that makes standard of living go high. So tell me, in the 10 sectors of any economy, where has the diaspora shown anything? You know, it's not good enough to just be called professor, engineer, you know, run around with all the titles we do. Even in America, there is no organization run by Nigerian Americans. They have the Nigerian diaspora organization, which I think Obasanjo encouraged at the time when he was president. It's a non-functional, non-collateral organization because there's no organization run by Nigerians in America that has a staff or has even written any resolution or suggested any legislation to the National Assembly or the National Assembly or the State Assembly. So when people talk about celebrating Nigerian abroad, fine. You know, just like the lady that won the record yesterday. You know, everybody in the country is up. You know, that's good because it shows you that Nigerians are looking for something to make them feel good. Apart from feeling good, can we have good feelings? You know, like I said, and you know it, electricity has existed in Nigeria for 126 years. So has any diaspora engineers come together and said, hey, we can restore power?
Let me jump in here. Apologies for butting in. You raised three key points here. First, you said, you know, looking at the contributions, they've not reflected in what we see in Nigeria. You've also talked about some key issues, you know, about Nigerians living in diaspora. The need organization is one aspect, and also looking at what we saw yesterday, that Nigerians are looking for something that will bring them together. But let me bring in Collins here. Collins, you've listened to Ejike. Nigerians have done globally acclaimed things from here, especially in the areas of entertainment, lifestyle, you name it. But again, Ejike's worry is that it's not reflected on what we see in the country. So how can this be improved upon?
Thank you, Sulai, for having me. Let me use this opportunity first and foremost to wish us all, happy Diaspora Day. 25th July happens to be the Nigeria Diaspora Day, a day set aside to, celebrate the diaspora and indeed have the kind of conversations that Ejike has raised. Now, let me just imagine for a second that the remittances that Nigerians in diaspora bring to Nigeria, which is approximately $30 billion every year, and that is the official remittances. I mean, if you add the unofficial remittances, we're looking at anything not less than $50 billion per year. Now, imagine for a second that such fresh injection of capital is taken out, is removed from the Nigerian system. Well, you can only imagine what the result will be. Now, there are also a number of Nigerians. I understand the points of aggregating all of the efforts, and it is only when it is aggregated in such a manner that you begin to see a massive impact. That is when you can then begin to talk of the fact that they are making significant impact. But again, consider a situation where Nigerians trained abroad, returning back to join either government like Ejike alluded to, or joining the private sector. Some private sector practitioners actually headhunting Nigerians in diaspora to come home and fill up vacancies that they don't find the skills immediately in Nigeria to fill. Imagine for a second that they are out of the Nigerian system. The situation will be more abysmal than we have it today. Now, what has to happen is, and that speaks directly to the fact that Nigeria hasn't quite galvanized the diaspora in such a manner that the significant inroad, the significant impact will begin to be felt. Diaspora Day is actually meant to provide the opportunity to begin to talk about and actually work out policies and practices to make that to begin to happen. Do we have a long way to go? Absolutely. Now, there have been a number of, what I can call achievements. For example, the setup of Nigerians in Diaspora organization by Obasanjo administration, which is meant actually to establish the formal relationship between Nigeria and the diaspora, just like what the Israeli diaspora meant and still means for Israel, what the Irish diaspora still mean for Ireland, and then the Indian diaspora and so on and so forth. That is what is meant to be. And then again, the establishment of NIDCOM, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission. These are meant to be bits and pieces of tools that will help get Nigeria to where it ought to be, actually leveraging on the vantage point that Nigerian diaspora brings to the table. Are we there yet? No. But,
I think, sorry again to butt in, and I think that's the issue with what Ejike is highlighting, and that's why Ejike has said that basically it hasn't actually given us what is desired of the continent. I'll take a moment. We're still very much here. I just want to quickly jump over to South Africa to see what Cyril Ramaphosa is saying. There's a live address looking at the energy crisis. Ejike alluded to the fact that Nigeria has electricity for over a year, and in South Africa they've been going back and forth trying to put the flicker on, and but it's not been too good lately, and the president is addressing the country on that. We'll take a brief insert in that, and we'll come back quickly to wrap up on this.
That we never experience a complete blackout throughout the country. The factors that led to the latest load shedding included a number of unit breakdowns at some power stations. We also experienced damage to the transmission line from Cahora Bassa in Mozambique, where we procure part of our electricity. And there were also instances reported of deliberate damage to equipment. Teams within Eskom have worked very hard to bring generation units back online and to stabilize the national grid. As a result of their efforts, the system outlook has improved over the past week. The agreement that was reached between Eskom and unions has allowed critical repairs to the units that had broken down to be undertaken and normal electricity generation operations to resume. Progress has also been made by law enforcement agencies in tackling sabotage, theft, and fraud at Eskom power stations and other key installations. While these actions to stabilize electricity generation have brought relief from the current load shedding, the system remains unreliable and vulnerable. The shortage of electricity is a huge constraint on economic growth and job creation. It deters investment and reduces our economy's competitiveness. When investors look at our nation, they think that we do not have the capacity to generate enough power for them to build factories to drive their businesses. As this administration, we have already taken important steps to increase generation capacity and to diversify our energy supply. One of the first steps we took to address the electricity shortfall was to revive the renewable energy procurement program that had stopped. We revived it in 2018. Since then, over 2,000 megawatts of solar and wind power has been connected to the grid through bid window 4 of the program. A further 2,600 megawatts of capacity has been procured through bid window 5, which will begin to add capacity from early 2024. We have started to diversify generation by allowing parties other than Eskom to also generate electricity. In June last year, we raised the licensing threshold for new embedded generation projects from
Well, that's President Cyril Ramaphosa live there addressing South Africans and other Africans concerned in the power situation in South Africa. And today, as the world celebrated the National Diaspora Day with Nigerians, I have two guests with me, Ejike Okpa and Nweke. Good to know that both of you are still there. Collins, as if the president had you said something about the pain that Nigeria is still going through. Let's talk more about electricity, and let's link that with the pool of experts, African experts, Nigerians outside. You've spoken on this, countless times, and we've had you on the program, both on radio and television, speaking about what Nigeria should be doing next. And it's amazing that the only example Nigeria points to, which is South Africa, is in darkness at the moment. Ejike.
Well, look, 1 + 1 is 2 anywhere in the world. I am not one who is overly excited or impressed by because somebody sat in a classroom and got a degree. I'm about solving problems. I'm about the practicality of the education and addressing the people's need. I've always asked every Nigerian, name any sector of the economy that is a glaring example of all the degrees and certificates Nigerians parade and pile up on. Name it. Is it in the banking sector? Is it in infrastructure? Is it in education? You go to the University of Nigeria, go to any of the universities in Nigeria, especially those that are publicly funded, even the ones that are privately funded, you're just going to cry. So we have to get back, all this emphasis about Nigerians abroad is a misplaced priority. There are 200 million Nigerians. If they cannot solve their problem domestically, then you go on a recruitment and wooing campaign. It's not every Nigerian that is abroad that has a value that in exchange for the country. The only thing that has magnified the significance or thereof of Nigerians abroad is the exchange rate of the dollar or the euro to the naira. That's the only thing, because 90-something% of Nigerians abroad in UK or anywhere, they don't have any knowledge that's collateral that they can come back to and help the country move forward. The problem Nigeria has, which can be magnified in the Black race, we don't know how to woo and recruit talent. So the Diaspora Day, whatever it is we want to call it, the point is, at what point is Nigeria the most populous Black nation in the world begin to be respected? Like I said, electricity, Nigeria built their first power plant 14 years after America built their own. The science and the engineering behind power, it has not changed. You can generate it from anything. The point is you have to transmit, distribute. The consumer, the end user pays you, you run utility company. You look at Nigerian Stock Exchange, 200 million people, the capitalized value of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is $57 billion. Do the math. Divide 57 billion by 200 million people. You see Nigerians are invested less than $300 per head. So what is the diaspora going to do? How many companies, corporations run in Nigeria today are run by the so-called diaspora Nigerians? Which one? I mean, in Enugu State, he did it in Namani. Namani was in Florida. He went back as a governor. How did he run Enugu State? So there are so many examples. So we have to get down and forget all this stuff and begin to look at what are the challenges confronting the nation and how can we solve it. Give every Nigerian in America, every Nigerian today $1 million with a PhD so that they can feel good about themselves. That country is still not going to move forward. because Nigerians have become a transaction culture and not a transformation culture. A lot of things have existed in Nigeria before it existed in most parts of the world, but they don't know how to sustain it or how to build upon it. So again, this conversation has to be, what do we do?
Yeah.
You know, people talk about restructuring Nigeria. How do you restructure Nigeria? Physically or by governance? I mean, there are only 37 men important in Nigeria. And until those 37 men are removed from having to decide what happens in the country, Nigeria will never move forward.
Okay, let me bring in Collins here, because the thing here, which is really, you know, a shocker to many Nigerians watching, is that line existed in Nigeria first before any other part of the world, but somehow today they're non-existent. Collins, is Nigeria truly reaching out to Nigerians in the diaspora to help fix some of these problems? Because as Ejike puts it, it doesn't amount to your paper qualification, but on what truly you can offer.
Absolutely. The point is this: there have been significant, early start in the process of galvanizing Nigerian diaspora so that they mean something for Nigeria. Now, I understand the frustration around the fact that until things begin to work normally in Nigeria, then it is rather impossible to actually look around and say, yes, the Nigerian diaspora have actually made significant contribution towards Nigeria's development. Now, if you look at what Nigeria needs, because first and foremost, I believe that a purposeful leadership in Nigeria has got to do first and foremost a needs analysis. Now, when you do that needs analysis, you will see that the developmental trajectory that will get Nigeria to where it ought to be happens to be areas where Nigerian diaspora are actually making waves in different parts of the world. Now, and I'm talking of first, second generation of Nigerians. Now, if you add it to the third, fourth generation that were born, whose parents, grandparents actually were the ones that migrated out of Nigeria and then, had them abroad and all of that, you begin to see that there is a very large concentrated pool of Nigerian expats abroad. I think the question then is, how do you galvanize them to achieve the kind of result that Ejike talked about? So far, I believe that it is fair to give Nigeria 25% in terms of success rate in galvanizing such Nigerians. Now, the moment we have a Nigerian Diaspora Commission that is awake, that is alive to its responsibilities, as actually enshrined in its beautiful national policy on diaspora, I believe that the important next step has been taken. But yes, I agree with Ejike that we are indeed, as a Nigerian diaspora, not quite operating in full capacity. And until that begins to happen, then all of these will be written off as mere talk and no actions.
Now let's see if we can put a bit of steam in this. Ejike, is it more of galvanizing Nigerians in the diaspora, or the government or the people, as you said, 36 states and one president, all 37, not listening to Nigerians in diaspora? We've had cases of people in the diaspora bringing proposals, ideas, and solutions to some very basic problems. Do we listen to these experts abroad?
Well, let me tell you, whoever put in the Bible that no prophet has honor in their village actually looked at the black race to put that in there. Because Black people don't listen to themselves. Nigerians don't listen to themselves. If I were a white man who comes to Nigeria, trust me, at the airport, they'll start rolling out the carpet. We don't believe our own people are capable of solving our own problems. That's why today you could invite the 54 African, I call them pupils president to go to China, and they're all trooping and going, or Russia, they go, or Washington, D.C., because they haven't been able to say, excuse me, 1 + 1 is 2 anywhere in the world. What makes an airplane take off in Ikeja is the same thing that's going to make it take off in Dallas-Fort Worth. So what is this running around the world looking like beggars? I can understand at the time when, Africans were not allowed to go to school for fear of, them knowing something, which was what this slavery was actually all about, But now that we go to any university in the world, an African and Nigerian has done well, graduated. Once that paper is handed to that Nigerian, what are they doing with it? Let's talk about the medical doctors. Nigerian medical doctors in America, 85% or more of them are still bedside practitioners. They are not involved in the healthcare policies or management of the institutions there. A lot of them don't even serve on the medical boards of the state where they practice medicine. So the Nigerian guy who has an education is more a transaction person. Want to get a job, get a good title, feel good about him or herself. But when it comes to the overall policy that drives an economy and society, we are wanting. We are absent. Look at the banks. How many Nigerians that we have? Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She came from the World Bank. While she was there, Nigeria revenue for oil was the highest in its history since 1975, when tracking of revenue per country was done. Did that money stabilize the Naira? Now you got Jonathan, who happens to say which he was the first person to hold PhD. Remember, before Jonathan showed up, everyone was talking about, oh, we need somebody who has a PhD. Now you have Jonathan. What did he do? So we put emphasis on things that really doesn't give us a collateral value. All I'm just saying is Nigerian diaspora, I'm not a diaspora Nigerian, I'm an American Nigerian. I came here by choice. If I want to go back to my father's village, I don't need anybody to woo me back. But what Nigeria is missing is, the structural integrity of bridges. What are the most important things? The landings. Build that bridge. You don't expect Nigerians to come back. The gentleman I was talking about, generation, my son and my daughter are not going back to Nigeria. I told them, Nigerians, you're a Nigerian by ancestry, but you don't have the attitude of a Nigerian. The Nigerian I'm talking about is the person who left, who still has some recognition of that place and going back. My wife is a Yoruba American, Nigerian, born in this country. She doesn't have the same experience that I have because I left when I was in my 20s. So we shouldn't be waiting for these Jesus coming back the second time in the Nigerian in diaspora. Let us begin to say, if I need you, I come to you and say, what would it take for you to come and help us do this? I'm not asking you to come move back home. Have that conversation. What are the policies? Let's look at an Igbo. The gentleman is Igbo guy. The 5 Igbo states still practice Osu. Osu is a discriminatory conduct the Igbos do. So one time there's a group called the World Igbo Congress. I went to them and said, why don't you guys write a resolution to the 5 Igbo governors and the speakers of the various House of Assemblies to denounce that? They backed off. So the diaspora you're talking about are the same people who have primitive attitude, even though they have degrees. This is what you do. He talks about Irish and this, how they help their country. It's not about money. They do it through policies. They lobby the American leadership group in order to effect certain changes.
Now we're closing. But quickly, for both of you, let's start with you and come back to you, Ejike, because both of you have participated in political processes abroad. Help us here, Collins. What's the difference? Because he said something about policies. Love it or hate it, it has to come through the political system. How does that system help to create a better environment where you are that is absent in Nigeria?
Well, I've mentioned it earlier on. It's through purposeful, policy articulation. You started by a thorough and watertight needs analysis, and then you build it up from there, going forward. Now, I understand, the pessimism, but I can tell you, as a matter of fact, that Nigerians indeed are making significant, impacts in the communities where they live abroad. That is not to say that every Nigerian out here in the diaspora is a genius. No, that is impossible. But we have seen statistics that show Nigerians as performing way above average in the countries we reside. Now, it will require the very few that are ready and able to make those differences to come back home. Now, going back, linking your question with the point I have just made, what it needs is that, government prepares the environment, like they call it in Nigeria, the enabling environment, to make those who are willing to and who are able to contribute to the development of Nigeria to do that. The first steps have been taken painfully slowly. Things are catching up, and some of us are optimistic that Nigeria will definitely get to its destination.
And for you, your closing moment with us, politically speaking, what's really missing, looking at what obtains in your politics and business relationship in Texas and what we see here in Nigeria? How can we actually bridge the gap and make sure things work?
No, look, the thing is, Nweke said something about Nigeria making impacts where they live. They do that because they are confined. They can't change that structure. If the early Americans who came to this country behaved like Nigeria, we will not have the country we have. We haven't been able to migrate. We migrate physically, we don't migrate mentally. That's why you could see a Nigerian who has lived abroad 40, 50 years and still go home and behave like he never left the village or never left. To be elite or to belong to that group means you pull some people up. You pull them out of certain situation. So let's look at, if you're talking about Nigerians, we're not talking about the Northerners who majority of them don't even go abroad. But let's talk about the Western Nigerians, the Yorubas, the Igbos, and then the other people that go. Majority of Nigerians abroad, you're going to find are Yorubas and Igbos. So you should go look at any particular Yoruba state or any particular Igbo state and show me an example of where a people have said, hey, here is the model that is working, and we're going to copy and paste. A lot of things in life you do by observation. But you don't copy and paste literally. You're going to have to modify to suit you. So we are not new. We are not new in going abroad. Again, it looks like the point I made. The first Nigerian to come to America was recorded in 1918, 4 years after amalgamation. Show me the proof. Is there any major corporation in America being run by a Nigerian, whether a Nigerian that came like me or a Nigerian born here? India has some of the smallest population in America, but 2 Indians born by Indians have become governors. One in Louisiana, one in South Carolina. And then you can look at corporations, a lot of them have become CEOs and major. Where are the Nigerians? It's not just good enough to have the PhD. I don't care about those stuff. What I'm saying is practicality. How do we begin to engage and recognize that, hey, the country, the most populous Black nation in the world is a joke. It's a pure joke because all the things that nations are measured by, it does not reflect well on Nigeria.
It's a place for us to live it, but sadly, I can't call it a fine place for us to live it. I can't qualify that, but it's a place for us to live it, something that should jolt us, something that we should chew on and think about and actually get the country and ultimately the continent working. I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Ejike Okpa and Nweke, thank you for your time. Coming up here on The Square, Robin Fortune and Maurice Wajewa joins me after now. Stay with us. Well, the African diaspora is one of the biggest of any continent in the world. The African Union regards the diaspora as the sixth region of the continent. It has some of the most accomplished Africans walking the surface of earth, and these people contribute significantly to the development of their countries through remittances. So the African problem is massive and is one of the biggest in the world. Joining me to unpack this further is Robin Fortune. He's a photographer and language teacher in Bydgoszcz, Poland. And Maurice Wajewa, he's a theater nurse in Munich, Germany. Help me here, Robin. How did I do in my pronunciation of Bydgoszcz?
You did great. You did great. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And happy Diaspora Day.
Thank you. Thank you for your time as well. Let's start with you, Robin. How's it been living in the diaspora as an African?
Well, it's been quite the journey. It's not started in Poland. It started about a decade back. First with going to the US and working there for some time, and finally settling here in Poland. But nowadays, I, of course, have a unique perspective of being a parent. And so I also observe through the eyes of my two daughters and people's interaction, well, the locals over here in Poland, how they interact with a somewhat unique experience for them and for us as well. So it's been quite a journey. Personally, I know about, coming from Cape Town, South Africa, there are many different cultures, there are many different opinions and perceptions of generally through appearance and other ways of connecting and interacting. So I was quite familiar and not at all shocked or, taken by surprise in landing on foreign shores. It's for me, it's a way of reflecting on my own biases. It's a way of connecting with people around me, despite our differences, despite our backgrounds. And as a photographer, it's opened many doors into new areas of our world. So yeah, it's been exciting so far.
I'll come back to you, Robin, so that we can see more through the eye of your lens. Let's go to Maurice. Maurice, what has it been like? Have you been getting some form of support from your government? You originally Kenya. So what has your government done to help Kenyans in the diaspora?
To be honest, thank you very much for the invite. To be honest, it has not been very easy. I have to be honest that we still need a lot of help from our governments back in Africa. And in terms of social issues that we in the diasporas experience, but generally it has not been so easy to integrate. It calls in for a lot of support that is from the social level and also from the family level. And of course, the government also, we need the government so that we can also be able to integrate fully into these societies.
And Fortune, we've seen the likes of Lupita show the world what's possible from Africa. And we've seen quite a number of Africans doing pretty well in the diaspora. Now, tell us, if you will, how significant are these achievements, especially to an African youth?
Well, yes, this is quite an interesting point, because the champions who show up on the world stage for the diaspora, when, for example, here in Poland, when it is observed, people generally we see a change, a shift in perception, an acceptance of what is possible, no matter where you come from, and it represents quite strongly the spirit, the African spirit, and in some ways also the way that the interaction between the world, the international stage, and Africa can move forward. Yes, it shows us the way forward. For many, for the last couple of years, I've seen media go up representing, okay, the positive side, Africans and the diaspora. Even on the not so far from here, the bus stand, the advert would be about some clothing company, and there'd be African models, you know, showing off their wares, representing. And when I see that, I feel more and more as time goes on, I feel more integrated. I feel more represented in media and in film, music, but also, you know, billboards, posters. It's bringing to light our way, our you know, sense of belonging, our sense of acceptance, and not having to prove that much that, you know, I'm not some anomaly. I'm normal. I can do and achieve anything I put my mind to. So that's what it shows me. For my kids, I would imagine it's quite similar as they go into, you know, the adulthood. They'd also be represented and feel accepted where they are, despite not seeing many people around them. I'll give you an anecdote. A few years ago, I went to the US Embassy with my newly printed South African passport, and the person helping me there just mentioned, like, well, you know, they found it quite strange that a South African passport, they had in their hand a South African passport, and it was something so unique. They mentioned that it's been a long time since they've held a passport from South Africa. It was quite a shock for them, and I was pleasantly surprised. But at the same time, the question arose that, you know, how many people from my background, from my how many of my countrymen, how many Africans move through these spaces?
Because I quite understand. Sorry to butt in here, because I quite understand what you're trying to paint. Because looking at someone who's been fully integrated, you have children in Poland,
yes,
just as Maurice. But again, you still have some form of tie to South Africa, and that is why you're still interested in carrying the South African passport, because you have a choice.
Yes.
Let me come to Maurice, because looking at both of you, you're almost on the same axis. So we have Poland there, we have Germany. In between, we can also see Austria. Now, Maurice, help us here. You're in Germany, a country sometimes some would say, especially in the east of the country, not considered very friendly to Africans. How do you cope in that country to the extent that is now your home? You sit comfortably there in as much as you still have ties to your ancestry.
Thank you very much. This is a very good question. And yes, the issue of racism is always, when it comes to Germany from the past history, that is a very true observation. The good thing is that the laws are very effective. I mean, the laws are there to protect us. That means, personally, I've experienced racial, what we could call racial attacks. But the good thing is that the police, whenever you call them, the response time is record 5 minutes, less than 10 minutes. And then, of course, you go through the court process. And once you go through the court process and the prosecution, then you get, by the end of the day, justice is served. But again, the most important thing in this land to integrate also for us as people whom I call Africans, we also have to do a lot from our side. We also have to be able to put our face up there. We should not really accept to be kind of put down on the social strata. Unfortunately, most of us come in, and of course, into this society from our backgrounds, most of us, not all, but you find a majority, then they aim low. And unfortunately, when you aim low and the societies like here that already has a past history, you will always come across certain issues that border on racial slurs, racial attacks. And unfortunately, then you get put into one basket. That has always been the problem. And unfortunately, once you are a man of color, most of the time you are the one who we can call in this situation, you are the one who will be catching hell most of the time.
And quickly, still with you, Maurice, before I come back to Fortune so that we can close. What would you say to those who have just moved away from the continent to Europe, specifically to Germany or to Poland? How can they settle in the way Maurice and Fortune have?
Thank you for that question. This is a very honest advice. I give it to my brothers in Africa. I give it to family members. We must be able to be people that really, we should be go-getters. We should not accept this kind of begging mentality. This is unfortunately what destroys us. And unfortunately, once you come into these societies, you must be able to fight for a position. You must be able to fight for a position to be accepted. That means you must be able to learn the language, or you give your best to learn the language. You have to fight to go to school and to get that education or improve yourself. But unfortunately, if you come in, and that is always the problem, if you come in with these lower expectations, lower targets, then it is kind of generational. You pass that mentality to your kids, and that is very destructive.
And quickly here, we'll come back to you, Robin. You know, there are many ideas championed by Africans in the diaspora. How can these ideas be made to also benefit Africans? Because watching both of you, you're already making the world one world.
Certainly. I believe that, well, the information highway is, of course, needed. The information technology, we need to harness support for platforms where we can dissipate our broader knowledge, our unique perceptions and perspectives on things globally. So this is one way of doing it. There's also I was quite impressed with the reference to fighting and putting our best foot forward and not lowering our expectations. And speaking to that, I believe that, yes, getting into a new, kind of like closed society, or a society out of our comfort zone and moving into, another, despite being, different, another comfort zone, we need to be able to go beyond what we knew before, work through for example, our perception of just representing Africa as a whole. We need to be globally minded. We need to, because the first idea, especially in my personally, when I came to a new place, I think of, okay, people can see me as a South African. So I have to be, I'm representing my country. I wear my flag, or as you will, the name, Africa on my forehead, and people can see me, they are watching me. On the one side, that's a good attempt at fighting. That's one way of getting through some difficulties. And then you also deal with the guilt of when something bad happens back home, you are not there. Someone may have passed away, or someone is having financial difficulties, and you may not have the possibility of helping them immediately. Someone may be experiencing crisis in the family back home, and you are not present. You can, of course, consult, but you cannot make much more than that. So in a way, you can feel helpless. All those little battles that you have to fight through, it's a way of moving forward with the support of the local community, with your friends and family and a social network that you that you establish where you are, your support network,
Right.
and harness that, look for opportunities, keep on going, take as much as you, absorb as much as you can, learn the language, and of course, utilize modern technology.
Well, I think I quite understand you, and I'm happy that many Africans across the 54 countries on the continent are watching. As Africans continue to stand out throughout the world, listening to both of you is important. African governments build systems and structures solid enough to make dreams come true in Africa, and also see how Africans living in diaspora can also contribute. Many thanks for being such a nice company, Maurice Wajewa and Robin Fortune. I do hope to see you again on the show. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
I'm Sulaiman. Bye-bye.